everybody just expected Munster to beat Bayonne. Bayonne, probably the worst team in the competition, and they sent over a second string team, and maybe Munster took them for granted. I'm not too sure, but the longer that game went on, Bayonne grew into it and actually could have had a chance to finish it at the end. Regarding Ulster, I don't think anybody expected them to go to Bath and get the result. And Connacht were facing a Bordeaux side that were firing on all cylinders, had a load of superstars over there, and we've seen them away against the Bulls in the URC where they shipped over 50 points, and they're just starting to look a little bit vulnerable. For some reason, Connacht are starting to look a little bit vulnerable, a little bit leaky, slipping off tackles, not as physical. They had Finlay Bealham, Buckley starting, Big Joe Joyce in the second row, JJ Hanrahan, who had been playing reasonably well. You'd expected them to put in a shift and put up a fight, so to speak, against Bordeaux, but that never happened. And I think the three provinces that didn't perform, you can't just put your finger on it and go, this is why. And I don't believe that the Rugby World Cup is part of that. A number of the guys have been back for a good few weeks. The likes of Jack Crowley's had plenty of game time. Stuart McCluskey for Ulster's had plenty of game time. Ian Henderson, maybe not so much, but he actually played pretty well against Bath. The Leinster guys, they looked like they were up for that, the physicality and the enthusiasm they showed, especially without the ball against La Rochelle in horrendous conditions. They were very up for it. So no, I'm not sure there's one thing, Donny, that you can put your finger on to say that, this is why the three provinces didn't perform. This is why Leinster did. No, definitely not. And I think the weather conditions definitely it was a big leveler, wasn't it? It was a big leveler, and I know you're going to chat about the captaincy of some of the teams, Leinster and Munster so far this season. And I think Gregory Aldrip was a huge loss to La Rochelle, not being the captain there, not making the decisions. Like La Rochelle kick from 40 yards out to try and get 3 points, but when they're 20 yards out, they go to the corner, like lose the line out. Then the next penalty they get, they kick for post against the wind, and then next penalty they get, it's like they're looking at each other going, what are we going to do, what are we going to do? And I think they actually had a couple of penalties where they took quick taps as well from 5 meters out in those conditions. So yeah, like lots of indecision by La Rochelle, and I thought they actually done enough in the second half to probably win the game. And I think Ronan Garr will be furious that they kept turning down 3 point opportunities, considering the weather conditions. I know it's the first game. We all expect La Rochelle to bounce back and go further in this competition, but that's been that was a huge dent in their confidence for a Leinster team, missing a couple of their star players to go away, get a result, and maybe that pain of missing or losing out in last year's final isn't as bad, or wasn't as bad when they woke up on Monday morning after getting that victory. Even when I get through the team sheets before matches these days, you see, C and then VC, and then some teams actually have two VCs. Edinburgh being one of them, Glasgow as well. So I think it's becoming more common. I don't know why they have to tell everybody, like why they have these co-captains. Usually you just have a pack leader and then a captain. Like, go back to Ireland playing, it was Brian O'Driscoll who was the captain, but I'd say it was Paul O'Connell that was doing most of the chatting to the referee. But I don't think it was just from a Leinster point of view at the weekend. I think Bugaret as well was having communication difficulties as well with the referee, and he didn't want to speak, did he? Too many times. There was too many voices going on, and I think because it was such a stop-start game, because of the weather, that almost probably got the referees back up even more, and he just couldn't be bothered with all the knocking back and forth. So, yeah, like I always think it's more advantageous if you have a forward as captain because you are in the mix of it. You are having more dealings with the referee at scrum time, line out time, in and around the breakdown. Like Garry Ringrose moved out to the wing at the weekend. So, having your winger being your captain and having to run in and communicate all the time. Like I think that's why James Ryan probably took on the responsibility himself to try and communicate more. But yeah, we're seeing more and more of it, and maybe it just needs to be communicated more to the referee pre-match. There's lots of chats with the forwards, going through scrum calls, going through what he wants, what specifically he wants at the lineouts. And that's when, James Ryan or whoever's the pack leader needs to pipe up and say, look, don't be looking for Garry Ringrose every time there's a stoppage in player. You need to have a chat. Just have a chat with me. Some referees might say, okay, great. Some might say, no, 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 I only want to speak to the referee. So they maybe open themselves up if they do that. But yeah, that's the way Leinster are working it and operating it. And yeah, I think they will get more change out of different referees as the competition moves on. I think we're used to seeing these Friday night lights games in Belfast, and there's a lot more Saturday games this season. There maybe hasn't been the same amount of fans going to the games, the same atmospheres. I've been there for a few of the games this season, and it has felt a little bit flat. But why? It's because the rugby isn't, up to standard. The rugby isn't up to what the fans expect, and the fans will still expect Ulster to beat Racing at 8 p.m. on Saturday night. They will expect that, and Racing are going to have a different mindset, and they're going to want to walk away from Belfast with all 5 points if possible. But to get the victory and the result is the biggest thing. They left even after a loss with 2 points, scoring 4 tries and getting that losing bonus point. So yeah, a win away in Belfast, if it is that 4 pointer, that tees them up really, really well. And Ulster have still got, a couple of hard fixtures to come, having to go away to Harlequins and then having to lose at home. Like, that's pretty, pretty difficult. So I think, I expect a reaction from Ulster on Saturday. Whether we get it or not is a different thing. I felt that we've needed a reaction a number of times this season and we haven't got it. The scrum is under huge pressure. That is, anybody I speak to is just like, oh, why is Ulster not performing? Why is Ulster not doing this? What's happening in their new attack? They've got this plastic pitch. Why are they not, getting their big game players? We've hardly seen Balakoon. Stockdale's been anonymous in Europe. What's going on? What's going on? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. If you can't work anything off a set piece and you're giving away multiple penalties at scrum time and you're giving away multiple penalties in your maul defense, like it's gonna put you under huge, huge pressure. And like Ulster in that second half against Bath, I know it was close going into the last 15 minutes of the match, but I don't think Ulster entered their 22, or if they did, it was for a brief period, just because of the amount of penalties they were conceding. And you can have all the physicality that you want. You can go up and make line breaks and get into the opposition 22. But if you knock the ball on and it comes to another scrum and you give away another penalty and you paint another terrible picture for the referee, it's not good. And I think the signing of Stephen Kitskoff has maybe added more pressure to the situation at Ulster because he was the marquee guy. He was the guy who was going to come in and hopefully nail that down. Go back through all of South Africa's World Cup games where he started. Of course, they had the upper hand on a few teams, but he wasn't winning penalties. It was Ox and Che who was coming on and being the guy who was the powerhouse and dominating the opposition tight head. So yeah, it's a huge area of concern and one that they got to sort out, especially against the big pack in Racing 92. Yeah, just about Munster at the weekend there against Bayonne. I think with the injuries, it just shows that they're the depth in their squad, or maybe the quality in their squad, a bit deeper down. It obviously isn't as good, and when you lose a couple of key players, a couple of your best key players, it certainly has an impact. So, yeah, I think Munster will find it really tough, especially Exeter. What a last minute they had in Toulon to get that result, and Henry Slade stepped up and kicked the 2 points to seal the game, and that'll just give them huge, huge confidence getting into this game. And I cannot see Munster beating Exeter at Sandy Park. Um, I just can't see it. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I think they need to take the handbrake off a little bit as well and go out and play a bit more. They sort of went in their shells a bit in the second half against Bayonne. Their kicking game wasn't that good. Jack Crowley, a couple of stupid crossfield kicks around the halfway line, just gifting possession back to Bayonne. So, they got to be a bit smarter with the way they play the game. Up front, we know that Exeter have a good scrum, really good rolling maul. They've, you know, pummeled a lot of teams over the last decade in the Gallagher Premiership. So that's where Munster, a bit like Ulster, have to shore up and make sure that they match them. head on head at the weekend around the physicality stakes and around the set piece stakes, because if they don't, they're going to get nothing out of the game. And if they go there and get nothing out of the game, you're not saying that their European hopes are over, but it's definitely a huge dent.